Don't do what they do in the WWE. Cobra for this one featured Momoko showing off her sword/weeb skills, which amounted to what she learned from Rurouni Kenshin. Yeah, maybe next time try Dororo. It's more of a classic, plus has a lot less baggage to it. Anyway, the episode proper opened with Momoko and Doremi taking in the most popular pastime of soccer.
Halfback passes to the center. Back to the wing.
Yeah, personally, football on either side of the pond has never been my jam. Nah, I was more into smacking sticks together, which was exactly what this episode was going to be all about, as the Ojamajo caught a flyer that one of their classmates, Ojamajo, was putting up. He was trying to roll some kids into his family's dojo, and of course, having the main character energy to them, he ended up inviting all of the Ojamajo to his place. At the dojo, they were agreeing with a sign that said Michi, or the path, which was a little foreshadowing for what was about to come, as Okajima suggested that they take up arms. Oh yeah, I totally remember them doing that back in my day when I trained in Kendo. I mean, sure, it led to my sensei being taken away for child abuse, but that's beside the point. Also, let's see, overly goofy gags that are a bit more distracting than anything. I'm just gonna hammer out a guess that the writer of this episode was, yep. Like seriously, bamboo spears and shuriken, I think we all know what would actually happen here. Anyway, domestic abuse grandpa here was trying to train his grandson to succeed his dojo. And to his credit, Okajima was developing into a skilled kendoist for his age, but there was a little hang-up that they had to deal with. Oh great, now we have to file for assault charges too. But yeah, this is all set up for a basic dojo versus dojo plot, which is a very common trope in a lot of martial arts shows, including of course the Karate Kid franchise. Speaking of which, Okajima needed to find teammates as they were being challenged to a best of 5, thus they tried to enlist a couple of their classmates who weren't really interested, so Onpu had to do some coercing, i.e. goofily forced them to grab a hold of Okajima's shinai, which somehow meant that they were in, even though they could just turn him down again, but it's a Naruto script.
Don't think about it!
That said, between the 3 boys, they were still short a couple of members, so they just went with Aiko and Momoko, which yeah, I guess is fine. I mean, at their ages, boys and girls aren't that much different physically. And that's all I'll say about intergender competitions. Well, okay, I'll at least throw this in.
Anytime someone calls attention to the breaking of gender roles, it ultimately undermines the concept of gender equality by implying that this is an exception and not the status quo.
With that, they were all set up, but Momoko also wanted to make a strong first impression to her friends and classmates, who already knew her pretty well, but yeah, she used her magic to manifest a horse for her to ride.
Okay.
Like, I can kind of accept Ojamajo magic making a full horse and everything, but when did Momoko learn how to ride one while living in New York? Anyway, Okajima tried to give the boys a crash course in Kendo that was exactly that. They crashed, which, yeah, someone who has taken Kendo, you're not gonna just get good in a few days, really. I mean, not unless you have main character benefit, then it becomes really easy.
Barely an inconvenience.
We'll say, I do appreciate this characterization from Masaru in that, as emo as he does get, he does seem to be a fanboy of Japanese swordsmanship, to the point that he did try to do the grab a sword with your bare hands routine. It's not something physically possible with actual sword, and thus isn't practicing Kendo, at least not where I went, but hey, let the kid dream, right? Well, the boys didn't seem to agree, and thus tried to quit again, which to be fair, they were kind of forced into this by the Ojamajo, so it would be kind of mean to force them to stay. When all else fails, just light that there gas. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of this scene. Like, this is the kind of jerk-ass behavior that I would expect from Milky Holmes, but not so much the Ojamajo, who were being outright kinda mean by forcing these two to stay, and force them to compete in a sport that I can tell you can really hurt. Anyway, the next day, Momoko came in with her big brain strategy. You're not gonna mention how that's actually illegal in professional settings? I mean, sure, you can actually practice it during casual fights because it is a good form of training in of itself, but otherwise, it's kind of OP for those who master it. But yeah, after some goofing around with Momoko basically becoming super gaijin, she ended up almost tripping and falling a fair distance had Okajima not saved her. In the process though, he ended up spraining his right ankle, which is the less important foot. Like, obviously, you don't want either foot to get hurt, but at least with your right one, you just have to keep it flat on the ground, while with your left one, you have to actually stand on your toes like this. It's a little detail that does show that they at least did their research about this sport, as this way, it does mean that Ojamajo could still compete, albeit still very much handicapped. Anyway, with only a few days left, and their instructor forced to sit things out for a little bit, the kids need a little something to instantaneously improve their skills.
Gonna need a montage. A sports training montage.
With that, the day of the competition eventually came with Okajima still injured, but willing to compete. Interestingly, the ref turned out to be Seki because, honestly, I think they figured that they should give her something to do since she's been absent for so much of the season. And their competition arrived with some quintuplets who, for some reason, did the magical stage routine because, again, Naruto script, you just have to kind of pretend that this is supposed to be funny. Anyway, Masaru was the first up, and I will admit, as someone who's practiced with some sloppy idiots who hit me in the areas that weren't protected, I kind of always wanted to do this myself. That said, it was still against the rules, so Cobra Kai took the first point. Next up was Momoko, who took on a brother who turned out to be one of her stans. Just a little reminder that these girls are indeed witches. Also, Momoko, that's not how you do a headshot. You didn't say ben, and you're supposed to strike down the middle of the head and not the side. I wouldn't make such a big deal out of this if it weren't for the fact that literally everyone after this scored points that way. But yeah, next up was Hasbe, who Doremi cast a spell to try and help him cheat his way to victory. Thankfully, it didn't work because really, the Ojamajo this episode have been kind of awful. Like, I'll talk more about it during the closing thoughts, but how did A. Guerrero put it? I cheat, I steal. Fortunately, Aiko pulled off a clean win, which, again, that's how you're supposed to do a headshot. Thus, it fell on Okajima to be the tiebreaker. However, with his foot still hurting, his loss was all but guaranteed. Thus, Momoko ended up almost using healing magic, which, yeah, I legit kind of forgot was a forbidden magic in this show, as it's been ages since it was a relative plot point. So, I actually appreciate them bringing it back here, and for a meaningful moment where Momoko did have to kind of own up to her literal horsing around. However, with the power of God and anime by his side, Okajima managed to get the win. With that, the kids celebrated, whilst Cobra Kai, okay, I get the brothers crying, but geez, this old geezer's just being a sore loser. But yeah, the episode ended with a new kid joining the dojo, and Momoko giving Okajima a congratulatory kiss because it's Narita and she likes her ships, I guess. As someone who actually practiced kendo, there was actually a lot about this that I really liked, and yet as someone who also likes good comedy, this didn't quite hit. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of good jokes here, but they were obscured by a lot of misses too. It's unfortunately just something that kind of happens with Yoshimi Narita scripts, with this one I think kind of needing a few more drafts. Even though I never saw it, I think a good comparison for this episode would be with something like Thor Love and Thunder, which had an almost constant barrage of gags, and while some were certainly funny, many of them just didn't work, and as a result, even if there were more legit laughs, you would end up thinking more about the jokes that just didn't land. That's kind of what I felt with this episode, as while I think they actually did a decent job portraying an actual kendo competition, it was obscured by many characters being a few chips short of a full bag. And while I normally don't mind a surplus of comedy, I'm not a fan when it has an adverse effect on the characters. From using deceitful tactics to force the boys to enter the competition, including a little gaslighting, to outright cheating during said competition, they weren't exactly setting a good example to say the least. Now, I did like the setup of Momoko accidentally hurting Okajima and almost costing his family a dojo, but I also kind of wish this had got a little more focus instead of feeling like a tonal shift due to, again, all of the unnecessary jokes. As a result, overall, and while I did kind of enjoy the kendo stuff on a more personal level, this just didn't strike clean with me due to too many jokes that led to mischaracterization for our supposed heroines. In kendo and comedy, you have to get your timing just right, and they just didn't quite land it. Thanks for watching, and if you're into martial arts, well, I think we have something like that in some of our other videos. We've got something new coming out almost every day, and might even try some new content once the next season comes. Look forward to whatever comes next. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, This old helmet's kind of musty. I should probably go get it cleaned out.